Namaskars to everyone who have assembled for this class, and I'm happy about the topic selected, Atmabodha, the highest level of knowledge, which is actually the essence of Vedanta. Atmabodha itself means self-knowledge. So I'm really happy about the book you have selected and the keenness and the enthusiasm for these classes. So that only shows how deeply you want Vedantic knowledge. So really happy to connect with this group. And today we are going to just study some introductory concepts before we actually enter the text. Because Atmabodha is indeed a very profound text. It is in a way the very gist of Vedanta. It has been written by Shankaracharya himself. And it is a prakarana grantha, which means an auxiliary scripture. Auxiliary means it is supportive of Vedanta. It's an introductory text. At the same time, it's not just introductory, it discusses some very profound concepts. And so we get acquainted with the terms, the terminology, the concepts of Vedanta easily through these prakarana granthas. So Atmabodha is one of the most important prakarana granthas, which has been written by Shankaracharya himself. There are many prakarana granthas like Vivek Chudamani, Tattvabodh, etc. But Atmabodha is indeed very profound. And in just 68 verses, it is introducing you to a whole lot of ideas in Vedanta. So before we enter this text, I want you to get familiar with certain basic concepts and terminologies which I will be using again and again. So as part of this introduction, I am going to give you some homework. I hope that's okay, because homework for next week will help you understand and penetrate into this scripture even better. The homework for next week would be you just go through the masterly introduction to Atmabodha given by Swami Nikhilanandji, the book which we are using for this course of lectures. So he has given a wonderful introduction, a long introduction with all the concepts put together, very lucid and precise. And if you just go through it, and if you would like make your own notes on that, it will be so much easier to understand Atmabodha. So in this 1 week, I'm sure you'll be able to cover that introduction by Swami Nikhilanandji himself. And drawing from that, I would just like to introduce a few things before we enter into the actual text matter. First of all, we must have a clear concept of what Vedanta means and why it is so important to understand Vedanta. Vedanta traditionally has been understood to be nothing but the Upanishadic knowledge. Vedanta Nama Upanishad Pramanam. It is verily the Upanishad. What is the Upanishad? The Upanishad is that part of the Vedas which constitutes the Jnana Kanda, the knowledge portion, which means this Vedanta, the Upanishads, is the very essence of the Vedas. Because it is the essence of the Vedas, it is the most important portion to focus upon. And what is it dealing with? It is dealing with the reality about the human being, the reality about this world of manifestation. It is speaking of the truth about the human personality. Beyond this body and mind, is there something which is of a more permanent nature, which is not changeful, which is ever there, and which is self-luminous by itself? This is the Atman which the Upanishads speak of, a unit of pure consciousness which you truly are. This is your real definition, the definition of each one of us. So Vedanta is actually penetrating into the essence of this I sense in us. That's why it is called Aham Pratyaya Saram. It is the very essence of this I sense in us. Now, who is not interested in himself? So it's like this. If the question has originally popped in from within us as to who is this I, what is this I sense in us, and who am I truly, even when the body falls, do I persist? And what is the unchanging part of my personality? What is the real I? So if this has originally popped up in our minds, I think a text like Atmabodha is the ultimate thing. It becomes all important in our lives because it is actually leading us step by step into an understanding of the real I, which constitutes me, my real nature. So it's a personal inward research into the real I, our own true unchanging being, which is called the Atman by the Upanishads. Vedanta also means understanding not just the self, but understanding its connection with the ultimate reality, the cosmic reality of what is called Brahman, the ultimate substratum of this world of manifestation. Atman and Brahman are not different. Atman is, in a sense, the individualized consciousness. Brahman is the cosmic consciousness. So the essence is the same. So Vedanta points out to this connection between the individual self and the cosmic self. Now, this connection also is to be discovered from within oneself by penetration into the heart of our being, which is declared to be pure consciousness in Vedanta. It is described as Sat Chit Anand, the nature, the very essence of existence, pure being. It is Chit, pure consciousness, and it is full of bliss, because pure consciousness is nothing but bliss. Another name for that is bliss. So this is the nature of the Atman, and this is verily that Brahman, the ultimate reality, which we are all asking for. So Atmabodha, self-knowledge, directly leads us into the ultimate reality about this universe. We are calling it the universe because we are perceiving it through the senses just now. But its core reality is verily that which is your own reality, pure consciousness. And that is why Vedanta actually deals with these, you can say, ultimate realities. Atman, Brahman, the connection between the two, and understanding the ultimate goal of the human life. So all of this forms the crux matter, the main essence of Vedanta. And around this have developed a whole lot of concepts. The Vedanta philosophy is actually very profound, very deep. And this Jnana Kanda, which is the essence of the Vedas, tells you that just through knowledge, you can overcome the bondage you feel by just being a little individual bound to a body and mind. This sense of individuality which we have, as long as it is bound just to the body and mind, you have a sense of I, which is identified with the body and mind alone. But that is not the real I. The real I is pure consciousness. So Vedanta introduces you to this concept that in order to know yourself truly, you must go beyond the body-mind complex and understand its place, the place of the body, mind, the world, everything in this universe which we see. You are functioning through it as an instrument. You are functioning through the body and mind. You're using them like an instrument, but you yourself are completely apart from this. So this concept, you can say, it is very important. A Vedanta naturally thinks this way. I am fundamentally aware. In that awareness is the thinking process. Through the thinking process is the identification with the body, and hence the perception of the world of objects. So essentially, I am only awareness. The rest is the data, the understanding I develop through my equipment, the body-mind complex. So this understanding comes to us as we go on penetrating into Vedanta. Essentially, getting to know ourselves from within, penetrating into the very depths of our being. So self-knowledge, Atmabodha, will help us do that. And so it is a very important text to concentrate upon fully. If we concentrate upon a text like this, after some time you will see your entire thought process becomes very Vedantic, becomes very, very clear, and you understand things from within, as it were. You understand fundamentally you are aware, whether there are thoughts in that awareness or not. Awareness always is, awareness persists, and that is the real I. So to come to this originally by oneself, for this to become an experience in our own system, that is why the Vedantic process. And this text will help lead us to this. So Vedanta is about tracking the essential nature of the human being, what we are calling the human being, the real I, the unchanging element in you. In order to achieve this end, there are fourfold qualifications which are expected of the spiritual aspirant. So this is also a very important part of understanding Vedanta, because if we are not particular about these qualifications, we will get a precious little out of this volume of knowledge. So the qualifications, I think you are quite familiar with: Vivek, Vairagya, Shat Sampatti, and Mumukshutva. So briefly, we will just discuss this before we enter into the text. Vivek is the faculty of what we call discrimination. You see, in Indic language, we usually use the word discrimination. It actually means strong, acute discretion, ability to separate the eternal from the non-eternal. So ability to do this in one's own mind, to understand clearly what is changing, what is unchanging, what is temporary, what is permanent, what underlies what, and to effectively separate the eternal from the non-eternal, the unreal from the real. This is what Vivek does. So this is a fundamental prerequisite, a qualification for entering into Vedanta. It involves great clarity of mind, because Vivek will not come and stabilize itself if the mind is not calm and clear. If the mind is too busy with objects, if the mind is restless, if the mind does not have sustained focus, then Vivek will not stand for a long time. It's just another thought. Vivek is not just another thought. It is a concentrated thought that condenses into a conviction and a very solid sense of discrimination between the real and the unreal. So this is the primary qualification expected of an aspirant after Vedanta, the knowledge of Vedanta. The second qualification required is Vairagya, which means a certain level of detachment from objects, from the senses. Now, if there is real Vivek, there will be Vairagya. The two go together. Because once you know the truth about something, obviously you know which course of action to take. So, Vairagya depends upon Vivek. If there is very clear sense of discrimination, definitely there will be Vairagya. There will be a certain inward detachment from merely the senses, from mere body consciousness, from mere mental activity. This comes naturally. So Vairagya is not about donning a Girua robe and going somewhere to the Himalayas or something. It is about detachment of mind, inner detachment of will from everything that is not me, so that I can track the real me, so that I can penetrate into the real I. I naturally disconnect from what is not I. It starts with the world of objects. It proceeds to body consciousness. So you deny that also. That is not the real I. That is a changing instrument I am using in order to function in this world. But that is not me. Vairagya proceeds further to the will and the intellect. So it helps you detach step by step from all of these, and finally from the entire mind, and that is how you penetrate into the self. So Vivek and Vairagya are twin disciplines which are absolutely required in order to get the experience that Vedanta is talking about. The third requirement is what is called Shat Sampatti. This is a group of 6 treasures. Sampatti means treasure. Shat is 6. A group of 6 treasures which are also required for the mind to enter into the realm of Vedanta. The first amongst these disciplines is Shama, which is deep inner calmness. You see, a very noble mind is always calm. A mind which has good sanskars, good predispositions, good tendencies, is calm like a lake. So this makes the inner penetration possible. So Shama is an important sampati, a treasure for the inner life. After that is Dhamma. Dhamma is self-control, which means ability to control this entire equipment through which we are functioning. Starting with the body, starting with the mind, will, thought, emotion, being able to exercise control over these. This constitutes self-control. So that we remain focused on our goals, so that our energies don't get dissipated into something which we do not want. They don't go in a direction which we don't want to go in. For this simple reason, it is required to exercise Dhamma, self-control, controlling this equipment in a way that it becomes conducive to our higher goals, conducive to the realization of Vedanta. This is the discipline of Dhamma. After that is Uparati. Uparati is another important discipline in which you make sure that the sense organs do not turn back and move towards sense objects. As a result of Shama and Dhamma, great inner calmness and self-control, you make sure that the sense organs do not turn towards sense objects. Because if they do that, the mind will not turn inward. If the mind has to turn inward, all of your faculties have to turn a little inward. Then only this inner research is possible. And that is why this discipline is inculcated. It is insisted upon. After Uparati is Titiksha. Titiksha is great forbearance, ability to bear everything. Because we are on a path which is very elevating, which is very great. So I am able to bear any obstacle that comes on the way. I don't break down. I don't get restless and I don't disturb myself. This discipline is very important in order to handle the dualities of life. Many times you see we get caught up with them. For the simple reason, Titiksha, Sahanam Sarva Dukkhanam Apratikara Purvakam Chinta Vilaparahitam. This is how it is defined, which means bearing with all the dualities of life without worry and without sorrow, which means keeping the mind in a steady state of deep inner aspiration and inquiry, no matter what your outer situations are. So if this one discipline is there, all our complaining and groaning and moaning will stop. We will know that we are in a situation where we can pursue this knowledge just if we have this one quality, titiksha, ability to bear with everything without reacting. At the most, you can respond wherever it is required, but not react and bear with everything. Holy Mother Shri Sharda Devi always insisted upon this discipline. So this is titiksha. After this is Shraddha. Shraddha is a deep inner faith or affirmative tendency of the mind, not a cynical, skeptical attitude, because that simply wastes your thought and emotional energies. So a very focused, actually the definition given by Shankaracharya for Shraddha is very beautiful. He says astikya buddhi, which means the affirmative sense that the understanding of isness, asti. So it's a sense of affirmation in your mind. So the sense of faith in the Vedanta, in the scriptures, in the teacher. This faith comes naturally if you are deeply aspiring after the goal. You can't but have this. It is not a blind kind of faith. It's a intellectually enlightened, affirmative kind of faith which takes you forward. The readiness of the mind to accept spiritual truth, to see things as they are. This is Shraddha. So this discipline is absolutely required. All of these disciplines are indispensable to this spiritual path. Then we have samadhana. Samadhana has different meanings, but the meaning which Nikhilananji Maharaj gives is it is supreme concentration on the goal. If you want something, you see, naturally you will remain focused on it, riveted on it. So samadhana is the ability to do that. You don't have to be told to pursue spiritual practice. You will do it anyway. You can't but do it because that's your goal. So if genuinely, deeply from within, if we have felt the need to know the real I, to know existence as it is, to know the truth about this existence, I will consciously cultivate all of these qualities within myself. This is how we mark a spiritual aspirant, one who is deeply ingrained with these values, with these virtues. He is fit for Vedantic knowledge. If I'm lacking something, I can always cultivate it, practice it, think about it repeatedly, so you create the vrittis required. When you repeat the vrittis, they become sanskars. This is the way you can create the quality in your mind. And unless we are well established in these qualities, it is difficult to pursue Vedantic knowledge, because, finally, Vedanta is not to do much with the thought process or the intellect. It is something far beyond that. The state of pure awareness, it's not that you have to understand it. Realization in Vedanta is of the nature of being and becoming. It is not objective knowledge. So it does not come within the purview of thought. It is far beyond thought. So in order to know it, the simple required is to be open to reality from within. You don't have to be a great intellectual or a master of all the scriptures. You just have to be pure enough to intuit things as they are. And that is why it far goes beyond the normally functioning mind. That is why it is called transcending the mind. The nature of pure awareness is like that. Awareness is so fundamental to our experience that we just miss it out. Please see this. We have given so much importance to thought and emotion, because that constitutes our mental life. But because you are aware fundamentally, you are thinking, you are emoting, you have a will, you are capable of action, because fundamentally you are aware from within. Awareness is the very base of everything. But we miss out this point because of our overcrowded mind, overactive mind, the intensity of our thought process, our deep involvement with it. So we miss out the basic facts of Vedanta. That is why the initial insistence is on self-control. Stop the mind a bit, regulate the thought process a bit, and step by step you can dive into this knowledge, which is so obvious. It is ever there. It is never absent. Mind can be absent. Mind can be shut down, but the self is never absent. Because it is always there, there is a way to go into it. There is a way to become it. Knowledge here is being and becoming. So this becomes a possibility if the mind is trained with these qualities which we are discussing. That's why they are the foundation of the Vedantic life. And then the last point, the 4 points were Vivek, Vairagya, Shat Sampatti, and last one is Mumukshutvam, or the desire for liberation. Now, most people do not understand what this means. Liberation from what? If you felt bondage, you would want liberation. Isn't it? It's pretty obvious. If you don't feel the reality of bondage, how will you ever want liberation? Please see this. Most minds do not feel the reality of bondage. They just want adjustments in that bondage to get a little more comfort, a little more, you can say, sukham, happiness at the mental level. But they don't want freedom, as the word is used in Vedanta. So, mumukshutvam itself is a rare quality. unless you perceive your bondage at every level, the urge to get out of it will not come. And how do I perceive this bondage? How do I understand what bondage means? My inability to get out of my compulsiveness mentally, my inability to get out of my conditioning mentally. At least this level of bondage, I should be able to feel. Isn't it? Many of us, when we are asking for peace of mind, it is because we understand my mind is not functioning the way it should. I am so compulsive. And I am so impulsive also. And whatever is happening in my mind is determined by the outside. Somebody's words, somebody's idea about me, somebody's actions. My mind is working according to the external. So this is a huge bondage. By myself, when I turn within myself, I see nothing, just darkness. So that is why the mind is turned outward in a sense. Paranchikhani vetrunat swayambhu tasmat param pashyati nantaratman. The Upanishad says, which means to say, the mind is as it were turned outward, feeding upon objects in the outer world. But kaschid dhira pratyagatmana maikshat avritta chakshu amritatva vichan. But some person of a very steady intellect, what did he do? He turned this mind inward in order to achieve immortality, in order to get the knowledge of the Atman. So it is possible to purify this mind and turn it inward, to understand the level of bondage we are in, so that the urge for liberation comes into us. Naturally, spontaneously. Once you understand bondage, liberation will be part of your mind. The urge, the need for liberation, the need to be free will naturally come. But if you are comfortable with your bondage, mumukshutvam will not be there. You will be comfortable with the content of your mind. So there's no question of trying to transcend mind or penetrate into pure awareness. That will not come. So that is why all of these disciplines have to be practiced continuously for many years before Vedanta becomes not just a possibility but a reality. There's a distance between a possibility and a reality. A possibility becomes a reality if you are prepared. And this preparation requires this fourfold discipline. You know, when we enter our monasteries and nunneries, our ashrams, we are not given Upadesh straight away, Vedanta straight away. For many years, we have to do a lot of selfless work, karma yoga. All these disciplines are insisted upon. And gradually, we are taken deep into this. So this is compulsory for every mind. If you just look at your mind at present, you will understand the need for these disciplines. A strong sense of vivek, deep inner vairagya. Vairagya is not at all about wearing a particular cloth or doing sadhana in a particular place. It is about a deep inner longing for the truth about myself, the truth about the reality of this universe. It is inbuilt within you, just now covered up by the contents of your mind. So uncovering it and bringing forth this inner detachment from a mere life in the senses or in a mere life in uncultivated thought, and diving deep into the heart of our being. And this Shat Sampati, these 6 treasures, most precious for the spiritual aspirant, cultivating Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhan. So just looking at a spiritual aspirant, you know, he's all for this. Completely awakened to the truth about the human life and the fallacy about the human life. He knows how one can bind oneself down and how one can free oneself. This maturity has come through the practice of these disciplines. And mumukshutva is not practiced, it just happens when you understand the nature of bondage. That is why bondage is to be felt. Bondage is to be experienced. The sorrow of being so compulsive, so bound down by one's conditionings, by one's emotions, by one's negativities. This is to be felt. In some measure, everybody feels this bondage. Please see this, suicides. When they want to kill themselves, where do they shoot? They shoot here. They want this thing to stop. They want the mind to stop. They want silence there. They want peace first. So the idea is this: you are not comfortable with your bondage, but you have not analyzed it. To feel the sorrow ingrained in that bondage, innate in that bondage, is to start desiring for liberation. That's why you see, Lord Buddha said this, that this is the first great noble truth, that the world is full of sorrow. It is in order to get out of that sorrow that we are doing all that we are doing. Vedanta tells us, but at the core of your personality is the very source of happiness. Just prepare your mind and dive into that, and you will arrive at that. So these are disciplines which are absolutely insisted upon before we enter into Vedanta. Now, practically what you can do in life about these disciplines, that is something I would like to discuss for a few minutes before we start with the text. Practically, how do I practice all these disciplines? I would request all of you to start with some level of karma yoga, some level of selfless activity on an everyday basis, which acts as a very purifying agent for the mind. What does it do? It removes us from being bound to our little ego, which has actually no astitva, which has no reality. Just analyze your ego and see, has it any real existence? It's just a shadow, a representation of the real, the pure being that you are. But it has such ramifications. It does so many things, and we have this tendency to identify ourselves with this unripe I, this ego. So karma yoga directly hits on your ego and removes it. Unselfish work, it's nothing for the ego, so the ego dies down. Selfish work is always for the ego, so the ego builds up. So by unselfish work, you starve the ego and it dies down. Even simple prayer for others. I'm sure you're doing it in these very difficult times. Every day, if you have one bout of intense prayer for the whole world, intensely, with tears in your eyes, that itself is a great selfless work. It will purify the mind immensely. So this is a simple discipline which we can practice. Karma yoga has to be practiced every day. Whatever work we do should help us get into the state of yoga. Then that karma becomes karma yoga. It's not just an action, it's an action that leads me into the state of yoga. Any action can become like a puja, like a worship. It can lead me into the state of yoga if it is performed selflessly, without the sense of agency, yet in a completely dedicated, worshipful way. So karma yoga is very fundamental to the understanding of Vedanta, to entering into Vedantic disciplines. Whatever work we are doing, however we are placed, you can contribute selflessly. So doing this on a regular basis will help naturally clean and purify the mind. Another discipline which we can do on an everyday basis is, see, this Vedanta class is just once a week class. Every Saturday we are going to meet. But every day if you can do some level of swadhyay, self-study, reading something elevating every day, exposing yourself to something, some thought which is taking you towards your goal, towards the supreme goal of life. This is very important. Every day the dose has to go in. It's not just one class a week. Every day something of this. The vritti is required to be created in the mind. That's the whole task. Because when you create vrittis in your mind, thoughts in your mind, vritti means a whirl. When you create that repeatedly in your mind, it goes into the subconscious and becomes a sanskar, a tendency of your mind. It's that simple. So every day if I keep repeating these thoughts in some form, I will get the sanskars required to penetrate into self-knowledge. It's so simple. But if I don't repeat these vrittis, these modifications of mind every day, then I will lose upon this sanskar. This discipline, that's why Swadhyaya becomes important, because it helps you create the vrittis of Vedanta, the vrittis of Bhakti every day. And thus the sanskars required for this knowledge, for devotion to the Lord, are generated in you naturally. So Swadhyaya should be made a part of life. Naturally, all of these qualities, Vivek, Vairagya, will keep coming into your mind if on a daily basis you are in touch with the scriptures. Whichever scripture you are comfortable with. It may be the holy lives of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi, Swami Vivekananda. It can be the Bhagavad Gita. It can be the Upanishadic literature. It can be Atmabodha itself. But on a daily basis, keeping in touch with these ideas, very important. And then bhakti is very important for developing what we are calling this inner penetration towards pure consciousness. Why? A large part of your life is the emotional life. Emotion is the most dominant thing about your mind. Even thought recedes sometimes, but emotion will be there. Because you are such, you are made like that. It is important to train that emotion and elevate it. That is why bhakti is indispensable. There are many acharyas of Vedanta who have prescribed bhakti. For the simple reason, like Madhusudan Saraswati, for example, for the simple reason that it is a constitutional necessity. A large part of your thought world is emotion. Emotions are high energy thoughts with feeling. Because they are with feeling, they have enormous energy and they dominate upon your mental field. So the ability to transform these emotions, elevate them, and use their energies towards our goals becomes absolutely necessary. And that is why cultivating devotion to the Supreme Lord is indispensable to understanding the nature of the Supreme Lord. If you have to love, it is always better to love God. Any human being will teach you this. Try to love anybody else. After some time, they will tell you why it is most important to love God. First and foremost, above everything. So make bhakti a part of your life. Sometimes I hear that those who take up the study of Vedanta and understanding Vedanta, sort of they get disconnected from bhakti. They don't go to temples. They don't do worship. So I think that's only being foolish. If you don't cultivate devotion, after all, whom are you cultivating devotion towards? Tell me, you're cultivating devotion towards that Supreme Brahman in a personal form, who comes to you that way so that you can elevate your emotional life to that level. That makes penetration into his own real nature easy. So you are being devoted to Ishvara. who is nothing but the highest manifestation of Brahman. So make devotion a part of your life. Any devotional practice that suits you. Like in our ashrams, we have a daily puja. So in some form of worship you can practice. We have daily chanting of what we call stuti and stavas. That is singing praises of the Lord instead of singing praises of half-baked people, undeveloped minds. It is always better to sing about the Lord, isn't it? He is the goal of everyone. So on a daily basis, praising Him, singing His glories. And what else do we do by way of bhakti? If you have to talk about Him, discuss His life in your free time. Please check and see how do you utilize your free hours of the day. Just now we have time. How am I utilizing it? So thinking of the Lord, reading. Today you have such wonderful books on holy lives, elevated lives. So dwelling on that, if you have to talking about that, this is an important spiritual practice, because again, the vrittis created in your mind by all this are very positive, full of devotion. They will help you in your search for this ultimate reality. So on an everyday basis, we can definitely do these little disciplines and change the very nature of our minds. You know, when today there's a concept called cognitive restructuring, framing. We use these words, especially when I teach in IIT. It is nothing but changing your sanskars through your vrittis, through the modifications of your mind, by having specific guided modifications in your own mind, your thought form, what is called. You can change the very nature of your sanskars, the nature of your mind, your traits and tendencies. You can change all of that. And today we have this great science of neuroplasticity. You actually restructure your brain through the thoughts in your mind. So what you repeatedly think and feel is going to become your bhav. So you have the capacity to change the very texture and nature of your mind, making the mind very sattvic, very pure and clear, completely devoted to the goal. If we can manufacture this state of mind, Vedanta, you will realize just like that. It is the most obvious truth about human life, because it is existential reality, the reality of existence itself. It is not psychological reality. It is not your construct through your thought. It is the nature of existence itself. And if the mind is clear enough, it will penetrate into that directly. So the Vedanta gives us a number of prakriyas, methods to make this penetration. If the mind is clear enough, even a method, a structured method is not required. You will just penetrate anyway. It's called the pathless path, that's why, you see. The path just opens up for you. So Vedanta is something very natural, obvious, perfectly possible only if we have the necessary qualifications. A trained mind, a sattvic mind, a pure mind. That's all is what is required. Now, with this introduction to Vedanta, and let us penetrate into the first verse of Atmabodha. As I told you, this Atmabodha is written by Shankaracharya. It's a Prakarana Grantha which is authored by Shankaracharya himself. You know, when we were in our training period, it was always recommended that you read the lives of the works of people of realization. This is very important because the impact on the mind is tremendous when it comes from the pen of Shankaracharya. That the understanding of that mind will just percolate into your mind. So it is important to read works like this. You see the very opening verse of Atmabodha. he is telling us, Shankaracharya is telling us, why have I composed this Atmabodh? He says, Tapobhi Kshina Papanam Shantanam Vitaraginam Mumukshunam Apekshayo Ayam Atmabodho Vidhiyate. I am composing the Atmabodh or self-knowledge to serve the needs of those who have been purified through the practice of austerities and who are peaceful in heart, free from cravings and desirous of liberation. See, he makes the whole thing very clear to us. For whom is Atmabodh? For those who have been purified by austerities, who are yearning for the spiritual goal, who are peaceful at heart. A very pure sattvic mind. It gives great calmness and peace within. Great calmness, peace, a sense of deep inner calm which nothing can shake. If this state of mind is maintained, knowledge at this level becomes very easy. So he insists on this, you see, for those who are peaceful at heart, who are free from all cravings for sense objects and sense pleasures, because they have understood the value of that level of joy. It is just the first rung of the ladder. It is small, it is transient, it is addictive, and it is never fulfilling. So one who has understood the nature of that level of joy will naturally want to climb the ladder of happiness. He wants greater and greater happiness, deeper happiness, more fulfilling happiness. So to them, I have composed this Atmabodh, he says. To such people, and Kshina Papaha, which means one who is sinless, one who is of great merit, which means one who has very positive karma. See, at some point of time, we will be discussing the karma theory also. We will be discussing yoga psychology also. Because you see, ultimately self-knowledge is about clearing your mind and finding the way to the self. So clarifying your mind that you are led into this supreme knowledge. So we will need all of this understanding, the understanding of karma, because your memory functions according to karma, the understanding of yoga, because that has to do with your mind and its tendencies. All this knowledge will help us to enter into Atmabodh, self-knowledge. So it's a comprehensive kind of treatment which we are going to give ourselves, so that every level of our personality is convinced as to how to move forward further. I am sure many of you are acquainted with these ideas. But here in these classes, I will especially be giving a lot of techniques, because a lot of people ask for this. We know the theory part. What do I do about it? How do I make my mind do this? What exact technique do I adopt? So techniques are prescribed by Vedanta itself. We call them prakriyas, methods to follow in order to arrive at Vedantic knowledge. So something of all that we will be discussing. The methods of Vedanta, the methods of yoga in order to penetrate into this. But the essential thing is, as I told you, to lay a very firm foundation for this knowledge in terms of developing these qualifications, good karma, practicing that, practicing bhakti, practicing swadhyaya on an everyday basis, and then keeping in touch with this, and gradually, step by step, we will enter into the precincts of self-knowledge. Again, let me conclude with this, that this knowledge, self-knowledge, is the most obvious thing about human experience, but not available to our conscious mind at present, because we are busy. The mind is busy with other things. That is all. The problem is only this much. So training the mind to refrain from being busy with the unnecessary, with the unessential things of life, and training it to move towards the essential facts of existence is what the entire discipline, all these disciplines are trying to do for us. All of these qualifications are meant to do that, to turn your mind inward towards the self, which is ever present, always there, never absent. But my mind is not turned towards it. That's the problem. So it's all to do with the mind, learning to handle the mind and turn the mind inward. That is the very purpose of all yoga and all the methods, the prakriyas of Vedanta. If we can effectively do that, the self is always there. That's why Vivekananda used the word realization. It's not a kind of discovery. It's a realization. Realization means something is already there. I realized it just now. I saw it just now. It is already always there. Because you are the self, the rest is following. But to see it firsthand, to bring it into my conscious experience, to dwell in it, I must discipline the mind. So today's class, I think we will end here. Today there are no Q&As, but you can, of course, forward your questions to Nanakji, who is the main organizer of this, and they will be answered probably in the next class. So I will end with a small prayer for the welfare and well-being of the whole world. It's again a prayer from the Vedas. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhaga Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.